Our story begins on a mission to Bothawai, as Jedi Master Pong Krell is the head mediator of a financial dispute between the Federation and the Bothan people of this world. It is a time for peace in the galaxy, or so the Jedi believe, but Krell was one of the few Jedi who could feel something coming through the Force. What he felt, he wasn't exactly sure, but the fragile peace being held over the Republic did not give Krell the same relaxation and complacency it seemed to give the Jedi Council, and corporate leaders around the galaxy also began to notice a shift. Credits were being funneled into a mysterious source that none of them could pinpoint, except for Newt Gunray, leader of the Trade Federation. In recent weeks, Gunray paid a rogue Kaminoan a huge sum of credits in exchange for financial information for the future, and Gunray learned of a secret project going on Kamino. Apparently, a clone army is being created in order to fight the Republic or the Jedi, or both. The details were murky. Even this Kaminoan didn't know everything of the top secret project, but it was enough to get Gunray's greedy mind excited. So when he was on Bothawai for this financial dispute, Krell would end up getting him alone. Gunray would tell Krell of this secret army made of clones that will eventually cause bloodshed in the galaxy, and Gunray would make an offer to Krell. He will rally the Banking Clan and the Techno Union to fund an entire army of battle droids for the Jedi and Republic to use when the time comes. Krell asked what Gunray wants in exchange, and all Gunray wanted was time and secrecy. Reveal this to no one. Do not try and prevent war. Krell asked why Gunray would want to fund an army, and Gunray said it was simple. War is the single most profitable business in the galaxy. He will profit. For Krell, he felt like war could be a wake-up call for the Jedi. They've become far too overconfident in their ivory tower overlooking the galaxy. If someone is creating an army to fight them, perhaps it's best to let things play out and allow the galaxy to see the full might of the Jedi for the first time in generations. So, Krell agreed, and he also agreed to hack into the credits the Jedi got from Republic taxes in order to help discreetly fund the droid army. After all, the idea of fighting with droids against some disgusting fake humans was intriguing to Krell. And as for the clone army, Sidious and Dooku decided at the beginning of their partnership to alter the grand plan. Darth Plagueis intended to create a clone army for the Republic and create a prolonged conflict between the Republic and Separatists in order to create their empire. But Sidious and Dooku decided not to waste that time. Their plan was much more simple. They would create this clone army, and they would use it to wipe out the Jedi as soon as it is ready. And from there, when the Jedi are all dead, Dooku will swoop into the Senate and tell the people that he uncovered a grave secret. The Jedi created this clone army in order to take over the galaxy. When he found it, he turned the army against the Jedi. In the name of safety and security, he and Dooku will use this to turn the Republic into their new empire. It will be cleaner, and without years of war where many things could go wrong. Their only problem was that they underestimated the greed in this galaxy. A Kaminoan sold out their secret to Gunray solely for some extra profit, and Gunray sold that same secret to a Jedi for profit. War was inevitable. And now, we move forward around 8 more years as the Jedi Council has received a message from Count Dooku of Sereno. For the last 8 to 10 years, Dooku has been quite reserved from the Jedi as he reestablishes Sereno in his own name. In secret though, he's been building connections across the galaxy and sowing the seeds of this budding separatist alliance. This alliance did not consist of corporate power, but instead thousands of systems that were unhappy with the Republic. When the time comes to wipe out the Jedi, Dooku will help unite the Separatist and Republic planets by saying that the Jedi were the poison that was separating them. He would tell the people that the Jedi were hoarding taxes to create their perfect temple and create their clone army. The Jedi Council knew that many planets were joining the Separatist alliance, but they couldn't do anything about it. They weren't exactly a threat, they were just choosing to leave. So, when Dooku contacted the Council to have everyone meet on a Raxus moon in order to discuss the Separatist movement, the Council would jump at the proposal, and a convoy of all 12 Jedi Masters would be sent to the moon for the first official meeting with these Separatists. Mace Windu was happy to do this. It hurt him to see the Republic crumbling apart, so any opportunity to mend the differences with these planets was more than welcome. But the Jedi were unaware that they were walking into a long-planned trap. As the Council transport landed on the moon, they quickly found it to be abandoned. There was seemingly no one here. and as they moved around the forested area, the bright sun in the sky suddenly seemed to dim a bit. All 12 Jedi looked to the sky to see a fleet of battleships suddenly coming out of hyperspace, and on the lead ship was Dooku himself. This would be the beginning of the end for the Jedi. He will oversee the massacre of the Council. He will proclaim that this was where he found out the truth of the Jedi clone army before taking it over to ensure the Jedi cannot take over the galaxy. Dooku would give the order, and clone starfighters and dropships began pouring into the planet. The Jedi Council would be caught off guard. They would fall, and there would be no Jedi left to stand in the way of the Sith if all goes right. But this was the moment that Pong Krell had been waiting for. When Krell found out that all 12 Council Jedi were being sent to the Raxus moon, he knew something could be up. Krell had contacted Gunray, and the droid army was sent to Raxus, waiting and hiding on the other side of the moon, just in case the clone army did arrive. And so, as the clones began pouring into the planet with intent to wipe out the Jedi, the entire droid fleet began moving to ambush the clones. And on the surface of the forest moon, the storm of Separatist clone gunships and fighters burst through the clouds. Dropships slammed into the forest floor as waves of white armored soldiers poured out, firing as soon as the Jedi were in range. The 12 Jedi held up their blades and carved through the first squads, but the clones kept coming in perfectly coordinated ranks, with 8 years of training for this mission unleashed at once. It was Yoda, Windu, Plo Koon, Mundi, Tin, Peel, Rancis, Galia, Trebor, Koth, and Balaba, struggling to hold a shrinking circle against an army designed to kill them. Shakti fell to a knee, scorched across the ribs. Coleman Trebor died beneath a collapsing tree, and above the moon, the clone fleet was in perfect formation, ready to press the assault and ensure that none of the Jedi escape. But then, the droid fleet came out of nowhere, ambushing the clones from behind. Before Dooku and the clones could turn their guns, the droids were already firing. Turbo lasers carved through troop transports with ease. Explosions bloomed across space as the Separatist formation collapsed on itself. Clone pilots tried to regroup, but were swarmed instantly by droid fighters that shredded entire squadrons. The clone fleet broke into scattered fragments as Dooku began a panicked evacuation, completely caught off guard by this. Krell stood on the bridge with a tactical droid, smiling through the gruesome battle. On the forest floor, hope was dying out quickly. Ki-Adi-Mundi fell dead. Plo Koon was hit in the mask. Even Yoda was slowing. The clones were relentless. But then, a mechanical thunder was rolling across the forest as the sky above darkened again. The Jedi braced for the final kill shot, thinking these were clone reinforcements. But then, rows of B-1 battle droids marched forward at the clones. Super battle droids stomped down behind them, with droidicas and commandos taking up the rear. The clones faltered, trapped between the Jedi and the machines, and using the momentum, the Jedi surged forward. Windu ducked and sliced through a dozen clones in a single movement. Stas Alley leapt into the air, landing atop an AAT and directing its fire into the clone squads, as the clones were torn apart. Yoda and Appo moved together, pulling gunships out of the sky. The battle completely flipped, and overhead, flaming Separatist clone vendors were plummeting through the atmosphere, crashing deep into the forest. No clone troopers would escape this initial battle alive, and in the end, the Jedi stood amid the carnage alongside battle droids, realizing the truth. This was all a trap set up for Dooku, a trap meant to wipe out the Jedi, and now they were left with no choice. Using this clone army, the Jedi were thrown right into what would be known as the Droid Wars here. Dooku barely escaped the battle with a clone, calling himself Commander Gree, helping him to escape. And in one terrible hour, Dooku's perfect purge had failed. Sidious's secret army had been exposed, and the galaxy was thrown into war before anyone could even understand why. It was the first battle of a war that no one had prepared for, aside from Krell, the corporate powers, and maybe the Sith. When the surviving council members returned to Coruscant, they would immediately meet with Krell, who told them the truth. He foresaw this war. He undermined the council to create this army, knowing the council would have forbid it if he asked permission. He was not sorry, and now they must prepare to fight. The council knew there was no time for punishment. Dooku and his clone army came out of nowhere. They were too dangerous to be allowed to keep going. The Jedi just witnessed firsthand what these clones are capable of. They're ruthless, cunning, bloodthirsty soldiers, and they're now a threat to the entire Republic. So, the council would reluctantly accept the droid army from these corporate powers. In an emergency Senate meeting, Chancellor Palpatine would proclaim that war is upon them. The so-called peaceful separatist movement has shown its true colors. They are a movement that seeks to eradicate the Republic, not just leave it. But with the help of the Jedi and their droids, the separatists cannot win. The Republic Senate, caught off guard by this, would cheer with resounding applause. Sidious and Dooku were both surprised by this droid army, but they decided to use it to their advantage. Perhaps Plagueis was right. War is necessary after all. There are no shortcuts to building an empire, but unlike Plagueis' grand vision, the clones will fight the Jedi from the very start. And as Sidious reviewed the first battle from the Forest Moon, he was impressed with the clones despite their loss. They were brutal killing machines, intent on one thing: eradicating the Jedi, and soon it will happen. In the end, Sidious and Dooku will use this war to their advantage. It will just take longer than they originally hoped. And so, Dooku and Sidious got to work as war was spreading like a disease. And the war would grow faster than anyone could have expected. With a droid army fueled by corporate powers and scared senators throwing more funding at it, there was no end in sight. Entire sectors turned into battlegrounds overnight. Planets like Christophsis, Seleucami, Adelon became fields of rotating victories and losses, neither side able to gain steady ground. Jedi Masters and Knights were scattered among droid battalions, pushed into leadership roles that they never asked for, and the work took a toll. Many of them struggled to understand why they were expected to fight alongside machines built by corporations they once opposed. Young Jedi Knights like Aayla Secura and Barriss Offee felt the constant pressure of leading forces that did not feel fear or exhaustion, while they themselves were pushed past their limits. The droids were soulless, and in battle, Jedi felt alone as they cut down living clones. Many were unsure if any of it was worth it. For the clones, the first cracks into their minds would appear during the Siege of Collar. They pushed a Jedi-led droid force back into a snowy canyon, but when a Jedi Padawan tried to negotiate a ceasefire to save trapped civilians, the clones were ordered to fire. The Padawan tried to defend them and was killed instantly. The clone saw her die pleading for peace, and the experience spread through the battalions. More clones began to question why the Jedi fought so hard to protect civilians, but still cut down clone soldiers without hesitation. It became clear to the clones that they were not actually viewed as human, but instead just bags of flesh and blood. It made it easier for the Jedi to kill them, and so the clones kept pushing forward, but there were many times where the Jedi they were fighting were just scared teenagers or even children. It felt wrong, but it had to be done. In the Midrim, the fighting grew even more chaotic. Whole systems became isolated because hyperlanes were constantly contested. Civilians fled in every direction. Planets burned. No one knew how to tell who the real enemy was. The Jedi Order tried to maintain a command structure, but by the end of the first year, dozens of knights left the Order entirely. They returned to their home worlds or disappeared into random settlements. They said they could no longer justify killing human clone soldiers whose only crime was being created for this conflict. They said the Council no longer understood the cost of every decision. It was not what they wanted out of this life. And by the middle of the second year of war, some droids were being built with adaptive protocols. Units began requesting negotiations rather than immediate assaults. This was per the request of the Jedi. Padawans reported seeing droids hesitate when civilians were in danger. Entire battles paused when both sides stared at the destruction around them and could not justify continuing. Clones who once killed without question were hesitating at the sight of Padawans who looked too young to understand the conflict. Both sides were more hesitant in battle. Droids who once repeated orders without delay were calculating the odds. At the heart of this war, there was some compassion. The clones hated fighting against young soldiers who were in over their heads. But in the middle of it all, there were still many Jedi who would do anything to win this war. One day, out on a separatist planet that had avoided fighting, a clone squad led by clone called Captain Rex was working with the local population to put together meal rations for the clone army. It was simple, peaceful, and away from the fighting. Rex was happy with this life in this brutal war. He was bonding with his men, and with the locals of the small world known as Senaria. But in war, no world is safe. The Republic deemed this world necessary to capture for quicker hyperspace travel. So, as Rex and the boys were working peacefully with the locals, the attack came without warning. Jedi Master Mace Windu would march with 300 super battle droids through the village. Homes were burned. People ran in fear into the mountains. and the clones were fighting back with desperation. As Rex covered for an evacuating family, Mace emerged, stabbing him through the gut. Rex locked eyes with Windu, seeing nothing but an empty void behind them as Mace glared into Rex's visor. Rex fell to the hard ground, keeping himself alive with his need for vengeance. As everyone around him fell, and the Republic claimed this world, Rex promised himself to stay alive, and to one day witness the entire Jedi Order dying for the atrocities they are committing in the name of peace. Another thread in this war was Anakin Skywalker. The Sith still wanted him on their side in the end, and there were many occasions where Anakin found himself dueling with Dooku. Every time they fought, Anakin got stronger, and he leaned more into the darkness, desperately wanting to kill Dooku. But because Anakin couldn't confide anything in the droids that he fought with, as they were soulless machines, he actually let himself be much more open with Padme. Anakin would tell Padme that he feels himself slipping into the dark side whenever he fights Dooku. It's as if Dooku is toying with Anakin, trying to get him to join his side. But this gave Padme an idea. If Dooku, leader of the Separatists, is trying to bring Anakin to his side, then Anakin may be the key to ending this war. She knew it was a ton to put on his shoulders, but Padme told Anakin that the only way to end this conflict may be by infiltrating the opposition, pretend to join Dooku, learn the secrets of the Separatists, and use their faith in him to end this terrible war. Anakin hated the idea, but he knew it may be the only way. So around a week later, on Felucia, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka were on a mission when they encountered Dooku. As all three of the Jedi were preparing to fight Dooku, Anakin extinguished his lightsaber, telling Dooku he's lost faith in the Jedi. Anakin hadn't told Obi-Wan and Ahsoka about his plan, and because of this, both of them reacted with genuine shock and fear as Anakin knelt in front of Dooku, proclaiming his loyalty to the dark side. And because Dooku felt how betrayed the other two were, he knew this must be real. After all, he knew Anakin carried a darkness inside of him that Dooku also carried. So, Anakin turned, using a huge force push to send Obi-Wan and Ahsoka flying deep into the Felucia trees, and he evacuated the planet with Dooku. Anakin would be introduced to Dooku's new captain, a clone named Rex, who was hellbent on revenge. The two of them would get on well, despite Anakin pretending to join the dark. But Dooku knew Anakin's loyalty had to be tested, so Anakin was sent into real battles with clone units at his side, while Dooku observed from a distance. He fought through waves of droids with the same power he once used to defend the Republic. Every swing of his blade was filled with mental agony, and the worst moments would come when Dooku forced him to confront Jedi Master Oppo Rancis and Jaro Tapal, men that Anakin respected and never wanted to raise a weapon against, but Anakin would kill them, only because he believed that proving himself to Dooku was the only way to gain the access he needed to understand the full scale of the Sith plan. He buried the pain under a cold exterior, telling himself their deaths were necessary sacrifices. The clones around him praised his strength, unaware how he was hurting inside during every battle, but Anakin held the line, determined to stay hidden long enough to bring down the mastermind behind the entire war. And finally, the Sith were convinced. Anakin would be brought to Kamino, where Darth Sidious himself was waiting. Dooku stayed back on Sereno, working with Grievous and the clones in more battles. Sidious's arrogance made him believe that Anakin was fully on their side, and this would allow the final stages of this war to finally happen. Sidious would get Anakin alone, revealing himself as Palpatine, also revealing that every single clone trooper has a built-in kill switch in their brains instead of an inhibitor chip. When the time comes, the Sith plan to kill every single clone, proclaiming that the Jedi created the clone army in order to create this war and take the galaxy for themselves. And the Sith, using Anakin's help, will rewire the droid army to slaughter the Jedi. Anakin listened to all of this, masking his anger with darkness, and when Sidious finished, Anakin finally acted on all of it. Anakin, after months of dedicating himself to the Sith, grabbed Palpatine's hand, telling the man he is so thankful for everything. He's like a father to him. Palpatine actually softened for the briefest moment, and Anakin ignited his blade, stabbing it right into Palpatine's gut, then pulling out a recording device to reveal that he recorded the entire thing, exposing Palpatine's secrets. Palpatine fell to the cold, hard floor, gasping with confusion, anger, sadness, betrayal, and failure. Anakin then opened the doors, and he found Rex. He gave Rex the recording, telling the clone captain that the fighting can end. No more Jedi or clones have to die. This entire war was a sham. Rex looked to Anakin, and he genuinely thanked the Jedi. Anakin couldn't wait to go back to Padme, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and the temple. Everything could return to normal. And Rex told Anakin that, in exchange for the clones agreeing to stop the fighting, Rex just needs the controls to the droid army. He needs to be able to shut down the army himself. So, Anakin would take Rex and a squad of clones to Mustafar, where the droid controls were set up. He would give Rex the control codes, and as Anakin felt relief for the war coming to a close, something was suddenly off in the Force, and Anakin ignited his blade just in time to deflect the bolts from Rex and the others. Clone Troopers Rex, Jesse, Oppo, Fives, and Echo began firing at Anakin. Anakin didn't understand, but he couldn't hold them off in his surprise. Rex's pistol shots hit Anakin in the hand, his saber fell to the floor, and the clone blaster bolts poured into Anakin as he fell to the floor, barely alive. Rex said he was so sorry, but the Jedi cannot be allowed to live. Many of them may be innocent, but he's seen firsthand what they can become. And for true peace, both the Jedi and the Sith must be eradicated. And from here, Rex and the others took the message Anakin recorded and pushed it through encrypted channels, as clone units across the galaxy would stop mid-battle as the message came in. They all learned they were fighting only to be killed in a single instant when they were no longer needed. Rex then used the Mustafar droid controls, not to shut the droids down, but to install new directives, protect the clones, eliminate the Sith and the Jedi. Within minutes, the entire war flipped on its head. Dooku was in his castle when a joint force of clones and droid commandos bombed his castle, killing him as he tried to escape. Grievous made his final stand aboard a damaged carrier above Hypori, cutting down dozens of clones and droids before a rocket blast pinned him to the floor and clone commandos finished him off. Across dozens of worlds, droid battalions turned on their Jedi commanders without warning. Jedi of all ages fell to the combined onslaught of the droids and the clones. By the time the revelation of it all reached Coruscant, the droid and clone combined army was already there. Droid carriers landed at night, surrounding the spires, while clone troopers breached the halls. Inside, Padawans and Masters scrambled to form defensive lines. Yoda and Windu held the highest floors, buying time for escape routes that never opened, because the droids already cut off the hangars. The clones pressed forward in heavy waves, absorbing losses without losing any formation. Droids advanced behind them, clearing rooms of Jedi at a time. In the council chambers, Windu fell after being overwhelmed by combined fire while trying to shield a group of younglings. Yoda died in the archives, buried beneath collapsed shelves after a tank round shattered the central support column. Kenobi and Ahsoka died together, worried about Anakin, and by dawn, the temple was silent. No Force users remained alive. On Mustafar, Anakin held on to life long enough to feel every Jedi life blink out, and then he died as well. When it was over, the clones and droids stood in the ruins of this war, knowing they have won. With the Jedi and Sith gone in a matter of hours, the political divide between the Republic and Separatists would collapse quickly. The two Senates met in emergency sessions and faced one another as equal participants in this same emergency disaster. Both sides agreed to end the conflict after this massacre by forming a unified Congress focused on rebuilding shattered systems, restoring trade, dismantling the structures that fueled the war. With no Jedi to rely on and no hidden Sith threats guiding policy, diplomacy was the only path forward. The galaxy accepted a form of peace on transparency and cooperation. The clones and droids would refuse to be folded back into this new order. They'd broken free of their creators and would not return to servitude. After tense negotiations, the Senate granted them full sovereignty over the forest moon of Raxus where it all started. There, clones and droids would form a shared society with no hierarchy beyond what they chose for themselves. The clones built homes from old transports, trained for lives that no longer revolved around war, while the droids developed infrastructure meant to support all of their needs. The settlement grew into a quiet, self-sustaining community, watched by the rest of the galaxy with a mix of awe and uncertainty. And as the unified government worked to maintain peace, the absence of the Force was strangely stabilizing. Without Jedi or Sith guiding events, ordinary people shaped the galaxy's future, and the clones and droids on Raxus lived a rather peaceful life, coexisting like no one ever would have thought possible. And folks, that is our story for today. One that was challenging, but I think enjoyable. I hope you guys enjoyed as well. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, clones and droids unite. How about that? Appreciate you guys listening. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.